Hey guys, what's up? My name is Nick. I just wanted to go over a couple of introductory type of things here with maintenancing, PMing, rooftop slash package unit. So this we have here is just a standard, just a train rooftop package unit, however you want to call it. This one's a little weathered. It's probably somewhere in the realm of 7 to 8 years old, I would say. I know it looks kind of rough for 7, 8 years old, but we're located, Gulf Coast, Tampa, Florida. These things really, they take a beating. It's possible this one's a little bit older than I'm thinking, but the others on this roof are all around that age. So we actually just quoted this one to be replaced. Rather than replacing it, the customer decided to just replace the compressor. It blew up actually, which I plan on putting a video out with how that happens, so other people can understand and possibly prevent themselves from being hurt. Anyway, so this is just a basic PM. There's a couple things that you guys are going to need going into this. First things first, you're going to need some gloves. Definitely need some gloves. You're going to need some jumpers, a Sharpie to date your filters. This screwdriver is like a multi-tool one. It's got a bunch of different stuff in it, different, like nut sizes, different types of ends. I typically use this the most for the flathead, because by bringing this up, I'm eliminating the need to bring up a bunch of other stuff. But a lot of times these doors, unfortunately, they get stuck on there kind of good, so it just helps to have something you can stick in there to help pry it out, rather than your fingers, because sometimes that could be a bit painful. So in this PM, what we typically do, we check the mechanical operation of the unit. We also change the filters, check the belt, replace the belt if need be. We also clean the coils. So this is the condensing coil. A lot of times we'll just spray this. This one actually doesn't look too bad. We just kind of spray it out, helps keep head pressure down, keeps the best operation of the unit going. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get in here and I'll explain some more of this stuff as we get into it. But got my meter, my drill, my 5/16 to get these screws off. Yeah, without further ado, I'll get going at it. So as these sit out here, this is the data tag. As you can see, it's not legible any longer, but there is usually some sort of a label inside that you can use to reference the model and serial. Unfortunately, you can't really get too much of the data about, like amperages and what it calls for, but these are all pretty standard, so I kind of already know. I understand that being a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience in this, maybe you wouldn't know that. Most guys probably wouldn't. We're actually going to turn the disconnect off. This is something you should do a lot. The disconnect obviously prevents you from getting shocked. You don't want to get shocked. It sucks. It's very painful. It can ruin your whole day and possibly kill you. So this unit, like I was saying, is not in the best of condition. You can tell it's worn out in some areas on it. I'll go over all that. Just kind of set this aside. Some older guys will tell you to lay this down. Just to give you guys a little bit of background as well, I am a year 5, year 6 technician. I'm pretty versed in it. I've got a pretty good skill set. I went to a lot of different classes and learned a lot of stuff over time. I've been basically kind of just thrown to the wolves, which a lot of companies will do to you, unfortunately, but it's the best way to learn. If you're looking to get into this business, it pays very well. I've gone to school for other stuff, business-related things, a lot of college actually, but this, you're gonna make as much money as your friends that have their bachelor's degrees. Well, you will be sweating the whole time. Like up here right now, it's 89 degrees. That doesn't bother me. Other people that may bother, but that part of it does not bother me at all, especially being in Florida. So what I'm checking for right here, first and foremost, belt tension. This is very loose. This can come off, without much effort. If I was using both hands, I could pull that right off. You don't want it to be this loose, so we're gonna tighten that, and I'll go over that shortly. But in checking belt tension, you don't want this to slip. You don't want this to wear prematurely. You don't want the amp draw of the fan to not be right. That's something that I come across often, is over time these just loosen up. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of videos out there. I saw, not a lot really, but there's a handful of videos on YouTube about units like this, and the technician going over it is most of the time the type of technician that is what I like to call a career HVAC guy. I don't really care for this work. I mean, it's all right. Like I was saying, there's good benefits to it, and there's plenty of disadvantages, but I'm someone that probably has a handful of years doing this, and I'll be off to something else. It does take a little bit of a toll on your body. So I wanted to give a perspective from that, you know, what you need to get by, what most companies really want to see in a PM, what most customers really want to see with the PM, is there's a lot of work that is necessary, but not exactly like, you know, gonna be the end of the world if you don't get, such as some readings and stuff like that. What you really want to check for with a lot of these, and this is what I tell a lot of the technicians that I've worked with, you know, that I look for, I make sure nothing looks burnt up in here. You know, they want you to check amp draw and all that, and I'm going to. I usually do a spot checking for that. I've had plenty of systems where it's amping kind of high, and that's just how it's been forever. Amp draw does sometimes indicate that something is on its way out. If it's amping high or something's not working properly, that's not always an indicator though. Sometimes that's just the way it is. Other guys will tell you that I'm wrong, but in my experience in this field, sometimes stuff just amps high. It could be the voltage of the building, you know? So I check here, this contactor, this is a 3-pole, I think it's a 30 amp contactor. This is the compressor contactor. Nothing looks burnt up, it looks pretty good. And then this being the blower contactor, looks pretty good as well. I think I probably replaced this not too long ago, that's probably why. Check down here, make sure nothing looks burnt up, none of these wires, everything looks pretty good. I look down here, and you're gonna see the outdoor fan. The wires that go to that, those ones, they're right here. A lot of times, these will rub on this metal edge. You don't want that. So that's a spot where I'll usually check just to make sure nothing appears to be worn. We're gonna check for capacity on this capacitor. Like I said, this is all stuff I'm gonna go through with you guys, and we're gonna amp it all out. We're gonna go ahead and clean this evaporator coil as well. We do clean the evaporator coils, you know, every few PMs, especially if they look dirty. This one doesn't look too bad, it just looks like shit because it's old, really. But other than that, we're going to dump water into the drain pan, which is down here. Can't really see it, but it's there. It's kind of hard because of the shadows. But after we dump water through it, we're going to go ahead and put in some of these drain tabs. Personally, I use a cup, and I use this. I mean, other guys will use a bottle. I'll use a bottle too sometimes, but they just get worn out. And that's all I had with me was this cup. So this cup has been probably used for 2 or 3 weeks now. There's a hose down there on the other side of the roof that I will use to put some water in it and run through that. So also very important with the, and I tell every technician, the 2 things you want to do with these is you want to cover your butt. Covering your butt means you check that, because, you know, a belt doesn't just break. I mean, sometimes they do, but for the most part, a belt doesn't just shit the bed overnight. There's signs to a belt wearing out. You know, unless it's super overly tight, it's not gonna just break overnight, you know. Same with these contactors, and they're not just gonna become pitted and look like shit overnight. So those are things I definitely check for. And same with the wires being burnt up, you know, all that stuff doesn't just happen overnight, it happens over time. So if you miss it in a PM and a guy gets a call back because of you and he finds that, you're gonna be the one to blame. So check for those things. Of course, do the filters. You always date them. That's the reason for the Sharpie. I was here in February. It's now May. So, you know, these aren't too dirty. I mean, it does look, this is supposed to be blue. It does look pretty blue, but usually it's like a bright blue. That's just because all the dust and stuff from the air downstairs that got sucked into it. You know, that's what would go into the filter. Have those filters not be there. So obviously always do filters, always date them, always check that stuff, always check that stuff, you know, for burn marks and all that, like I was talking about. Always put the drain tabs in, because the drain tabs, they eat up the gook and all that gets piled up inside the drain pan. You know, if you're the guy on call, you definitely don't want to get a call because the technician that was there before you didn't put the drain tabs in. So we always do that. Always make sure the drain line is empty. Drain line does not clog overnight. I mean, there could be other drain related issues that could happen, but for the most part, a drain line is not going to clog overnight. And if we're clearing them every time we're here for this maintenance, which we're here quarterly, it shouldn't clog within that amount of time. So if a guy comes out here because the unit is leaking water into the space, which is what will happen sometimes if the drain gets clogged up, or the guy is called out here because the unit shut down or the thermostat is blank, that also are indicators that a float switch was lifted, and I don't think this unit has one, so it wouldn't apply to this. But regardless, a drain is very important. So those are the things you want to do. You want to check for burn marks and pitted stuff. You want to check for any wire fraying. You want to change the filters, and you want to make sure that it's draining properly. Those are, no matter how hard you look into a unit, those are the things that you want to do to prevent callbacks, and those are the bare minimum things you should be doing on every PM. So this side, on this train unit, we have the supply side, which is here. That's going to be your discharge air, and then you have your return temperature, which is on that side of the coil. So we're going to go ahead and put this in there, and when I put this back together and I turn the unit on, I'm going to go ahead and either jump it out, or if it comes right on, I'm going to wait, let it cool off a little bit to see what our discharge temp is. A normal unit, you want to see a 20-degree discharge temp, so that's what these are typically designed for. I would think if I saw somewhere in the 48 to 54 degree range for discharge temp, and then a return temp of 20 degrees higher than that, so 68 to 75, we'll say. If I saw those two numbers here, I know that the unit is cooling pretty darn well. So some guys are probably watching this, maybe with the similar amount of experience that I have, or maybe a little bit less even. They're thinking, why aren't you going to check the charge on this unit? Well, I try to not do that too often. You're going to see sweating here. It should be beer can cold, as they say. You're going to see sweating here. It's cooling, and this is going to be hotter. You don't want to touch it, obviously, on the top. But if you see that sweating, it's making water, and the discharge and the temps are right. There's no point in putting your gauges on there and risking dumping the charge. You don't want to do that, especially some of these systems, older ones, not this one. Some of these are R22, and R22 is very expensive. You don't want to dump that charge, because your boss will be awfully mad at you if you guys have to throw in 7 to 8 pounds of R22, which we charge. It's over $100 a pound because they stopped making it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these panels back on here real quick and run the unit and just check our temps. That way, if something seems off, I can look further into it. All right, guys. So some time went by. The unit, the thermostat, is no longer in delay, so now we can check a few things out. We'll take the meter and we'll check our amp draws while we're over here. We've got the lower contactor, 1.9. That's a good sign. It's well below the allotted amount. Then we have the compressor contactor. You can go reach in your hand in there if you want. Personally, I'm not going to do it that way. I don't want to take the risk. I don't want to be close to getting that. So we're going to head down here to the wire itself. Check it there. So one sign indicating we're cooling properly is that this is getting all watery, sweating. It feels awfully cold. That's good. You want that to be obviously beer can cold, but I'll say it. It's a good sign. I'm going to go ahead and just check my amp level. That's a good sign as well. Now we'll go over here and we'll check out the temperature good. Another sign that tells you it's wrong. This is good. 51. Usually you want to give this a minute or two to run. This has been running for probably about 4 or 5 minutes now. So 51 degree discharge is good, very good. And this should be somewhere around like low 70s. That's what we're looking for. That'll get up there probably pretty quick. It's pretty warm out. It's probably 88 maybe, somewhere in there and sunny. Pretty nice day actually. Tough day to be wearing boots and jeans, but that's okay. It's a little warm. So we'll let this do its thing for a minute. While that's getting to the right temperature, we're going to go ahead and check out these lines while we're standing over here. This is a habit of mine. I usually just take a peek in here. You guys might not be able to see the shadows and whatnot, but I can see some cobwebs and there's just some cook in there that we're going to clean out. But a lot of water over here. This is obviously where it drains to. This water is probably mostly from our unit here, because the only other line that leads directly to here is broken. So pretty good indicator that most of the water is coming from the one that mounted to it. So here we got 69 degree return air and rising. So that's pretty darn close to 20 degrees. Like I said, these units are designed for about a 20 degree ability. So yeah, it's getting even closer to that. That's a good sign. This thing is cooling as it should. It seems like she's working pretty well. So capacity is, it's pretty easy all in all. The thing you want to do though is, they'll tell you not to do this in school, but you want to discharge this thing first. This will zap you and it'll suck. So you want to just stick your metal in there and make sure that any charge in the capacitor is discharged. Some guys will tell you to pull these leaves off first. I do sometimes, sometimes I don't. In this case, I'm just not gonna. But, you know, because I'm using one hand, the other hand hold my camera. So we know, looking at this, that the brown is on the left side, the left terminal, and the brown with the white stripe is on the right terminal. I'll remember that. I just know how these usually are set up. You want to take these off. Sometimes they can be a pain. Prime up with the screw, or you can pull them off by hand. I'm probably going to set the camera down for a second and do them by hand. That would make things easier for me. So, the capacitor in hand, as you can see, pretty good shape. This is a 15 microfarad capacitor with the ability of 5% slop, as they call it. Some of the guys call it slop. So what you want to do now, set that here. We're going to go ahead and set our meter over to, or microfarad, sorry. It's going to check our capacity. Alright, set to microfarad. You want to try to just touch these the best you can. Okay, now I got them touching. Pretty good, and it's reading 14.5. That's what it was before I let go of it. You guys saw it. 5% of 15, you're going to multiply 15 times 0.05, which will give you 0.75. You subtract 0.75 from 15, you're going to get 14.25. And according to the meter, we read 14.5. So this thing is capaciting well. This thing is good. We can go ahead and put it back in here now. The drain pan, it's just kind of a rusty pile of crap, to be honest with you. But what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these out. Sometimes you use two. I'm just going to use one for the sake of showing you guys. And you're going to break it up into a few pieces here. This allows it to be less concentrated in one area. We come out here quarterly, so these are usually gone by the time we get back out. But anyway, down here we've got the drain pan. You just toss those in there. Just kind of toss them around the best you can. Spread them out a little bit. That way, any gook that's kind of just piled up in there, you can begin the slow process of eating away at. Vaporizes it kind of there, melts it, whatever you want to call it, into liquid, which just comes out of that line. So that part is done. Now what we're going to do is pull these filters out the rest of the way. I actually don't have the filters with me today. I'm scheduled to be here 2 days, so tomorrow I'll be bringing the filters, but that's the easiest part of this thing. You take the filter out, you toss the old one off to the side, you date the new one, and you slide it in. You're always going to want to have the metal side here facing metal on the coil. That's how I always remembered it, metal on metal. Airflow is always going to be toward the coil. You're sucking air from down there. Yeah. We'll pull these out here. We're going to go ahead and start the the coil cleaning process. This is an indoor coil, evaporator coil, whatever you want to call it. This is going to use foaming, non-rinse, good smelling coil cleaner. What this does is it foams up, it just takes dust and particles out of there and runs it all down to the drain pan, where it will get flushed out with water when we bring the water hose like we do and all that, or just fill that and dump the water on there. It'll all get flushed out either way. It just eats away at small goopy stuff. Now this you're going to want to use for your normal situation like now. You're going to want to use this when you don't have anything major blocking it up. If you have a major blockage in the coil, you don't want to use this one. You're going to want to use a different cleaner. So this is just your standard non-rinse coil cleaner. So what I always do, I start at the top because gravity is going to pull all the liquid down, pull the foam down, whatever you want to call it. And I go ahead and I just spray. It's hard to reach your arm in here. You got to really, this is probably a good 4 feet or so, but I'm just going to start to show you guys by doing this here. You want to kind of go back and forth with it. So I know this one's ready to go. gonna make a very fine line there. You just shoot it into the coil and go back and forth. Smells pretty good already. See, that's there. You can already kind of see some of the black particles. That's the dust coming out. And again, this is gonna help clear the coil out, make sure that there's no drip that got past the filters sticking in there. Sometimes I'll spray these down with water a little bit just to kind of, it says non-rinse, but I don't know how much you want to trust that, I guess. I do. Other guys, old school guys will tell you that they don't, but they put this through a lot of testing. They wouldn't sell it. Yeah, they wouldn't really sell this stuff at Johnstone, you know, if it was problematic. For some of these older coils, it may not be the best because they're a little bit more sensitive, but for the most part, this is a pretty good product. I've used it for a long time and always delivers good results. All right, so we are all set with cleaning the coils. Look a little bit better. Went ahead and started looking at the drain over here. This drain pan is broken. This is a pretty common thing with a unit of this age. You can see in there it's cracked pretty good. Took a few minutes to go have some water and stuff like that. Probably closer to about a half hour or so, and realized when I came back with that happening, we found an issue. Water should not be dripping from the unit. So we come over here, again, that's the drain pan in there, that area where we put the tabs earlier. Water is unfortunately dripping into the unit due to that. Now, who knows how long this has been occurring, but with the water here, it's probably been occurring for a while. No complaints from the customer about water coming into their space. That's a good sign, indicating that even though it's not draining properly, it hasn't become enough of an issue yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write up that this drain pan needs to be replaced. This would probably take one guy to buy ourselves some time, you know, get the part and everything else. Say one guy 4 hours. You gotta order this specific one. Basically what you gotta do is you gotta take this stuff off and take this out, that out, and then you gotta pull it out this way, and then the new one just goes right in. We would just put 4 hours in case something goes wrong or whatever else. But anyway, we'll write that up at some point. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and still work with the drain, you know, as if it wasn't broken, because it still is draining somewhat, and we want to keep the draining going, you know, not make it any worse into the space. So this here, this was a gallon that I had rolling around in the back of the van. I went and just emptied out the rest of the coil cleaner that was in it into another container. That way I could use this one rather than our trusty cup there. Got a few units up here we got to do, so definitely helps having this and not having to go back and forth. So what we're going to do is open this up, and it's blue because I put some smaller versions of those in there and let them dissolve. That helps eat away at any crud in there. We're going to go ahead and toss this in here just to kind of route the liquid to go the right way. Just dump a little bit at a time, really. Too much. We'll go to the other side and you should see some blue liquid coming out. So over there. Yeah, okay. So it's gonna definitely need some more. Just look in here and make sure. Yeah, okay. So you can see it's all bubbly. That's from the liquid. It's just not enough yet to drain out of the system, so we're going to dump a whole lot more in there. Funnel is a really underrated HVAC tool. A lot of techs I work with don't actually even use a funnel. For some reason they just kind of try their best to get it in there, but there we go. Now we got a pretty good amount coming out. It doesn't look all that blue from here, but I can see the bubbles from it. So we'll put that back in there. Now, what we're going to want to do is also clear this line, so we're going to go ahead and take this off of here. That is a part of the drain. You're going to want to kind of smack this out a little bit. By doing this, stuff's flying out of it. You're just kind of getting the gook out of there. Kind of see in there, there's just old, nasty stuff. Now we're going to want to actually try to just thread this back in. It's not going to thread in super well because of how broken it is, but just to get us by, you know, until the customer approves the new drain pan. That's probably the best we're going to get. Put that back on there. Now this thing's probably draining pretty good overall because, sorry guys, I just adjust that with 2 hands. Get it real quick. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of water over here, and before I could see, you know, this drain is broken. So the only water hanging around here is going to be from this drain we've got. So we're gonna go ahead and dump a bunch through here. The pressure of the liquid going through this line being so much greater than if the system was just running. That increased pressure being so much greater, like I was saying, will usually get out any major clogs. So we dumped a handful of that down there. Check over here, make sure it's all coming out. And you can already see bubbles and stuff like that. Good flow. So the drain is all set. So one other thing that's very important, obviously we had this in there. You want to always remember, if the unit you come up to has a cap on here, indicates that the unit is under negative pressure. It would suck air back into it, preventing the water from properly flowing out. You know, water could spill back into the unit and then leak back into the space. You definitely want to avoid that, so always remember to put the cap back on there if that is the case at the trap. All right, now that we are back at the other side of the unit, this is probably the last part that I'll be showing you guys today. It's kind of hard to hear, but if you listen closely, you can kind of hear the indoor fan motor. It's almost whining, if that makes sense. I'm gonna go ahead and take this panel off, that way you guys can hear better. Okay, panel is off. I'm gonna try my best to speak up. It is a little noisy, so this is not supposed to sound this way. The sound is a whining sound. This could be a couple of things. A lot of times if the bearings are going, it'll start to sound this way. I think in this case, the sound is probably the sound of the side of the belt hitting the motor sheath. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjust that. By doing so, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the power up first. Like I said, anytime you put your hands in any area of this unit that has any moving parts or electrical, you're gonna wanna shut that off. Not supposed to sound that way. So, in order to adjust tension, adjust the belt on this specific unit, a lot of times you'll also find a spare back here. In this case, we're not gonna need that. This unit, or this belt is still in pretty good overall condition. Go ahead and just check. You're looking for like a rut in here. I don't feel one. Look for a rut in this sheave. I don't feel one here either. So like I said, most likely situation is that the belt is just simply too loose. Now this does degrade the wear of the belt prematurely. You don't want that either. Go ahead and, I think this is a 9/16. So when I went downstairs and grabbed the jug, I also grabbed a couple other things. I grabbed an adjustable wrench, crescent wrench, and then I just grabbed a few different sizes. Different size units will need different size actual wrenches. This is a ratcheting wrench. It makes this whole thing a lot easier. So what you want to do is you want to get this over this cap, if that makes sense. It's not always easy because of like the rust and stuff on there. So what I'm gonna do is just put this here. You want to loosen this up. This bolt or nut at the bottom, if you want to call it, it holds this together. So you loosen this up. Okay, here we go. You don't want the whole thing to move, obviously. You just want the nut to move. Now it's looser, so we can go ahead and tighten this. Obviously, you go further away, it'll be tighter. You know, further in that direction, it'll be tighter. Further in this direction, it'll be looser. So now, in this case, we want to go ahead and make this tighter. So we're going to go ahead and hit that. Jeez, it's just so rusty. It's not very easy to do that. So, still pretty loose. We're going to just try to move this over with this. Hammer. Should have moved over a little bit there. It's a little tighter. Still not all that easy. Try to it's just hard with one hand slash a rusty old adjustment. Okay. It's definitely a bit tighter now. This is banjo string. You don't want to do that tight. I would say probably that is what you're looking for. Now that you got that tightness down, if you guys can hear that, but it's actually a little rain cloud moved over us. Feels pretty darn good though, I'll be honest with you. Florida, it does rain here quite a bit in the rainy season. Let's go ahead and tighten this down. So I'm going to tighten this. In order for me to do that though, I need 2 hands, so I'm going to stop recording for a sec. Okay, so using both hands, I was able to get this bottom nut tighter without moving the whole thing. This is much tighter now. This is much better as well. So that concludes it. You know, at this point forward, I just put the filters back in the unit. Obviously, I'll be replacing those shortly, but I don't want these ones to get wet in the meantime. I got to go pick the other filters up for tomorrow. But you just return this back on. Obviously, you never want to forget to leave this off because somebody has to come back here to turn that back on. They're going to be awfully upset with you. You'll be upset with yourself. Put this back on. This blower is going to come on in a minute here whenever this delay on the thermostat is over with. So it'll sound better. That's pretty much the basics for doing a PM. Those are the things just came on. Those are the things to do and look for. So the bearings still have a bit of a noise, but it does sound a bit, I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, the bearings still have a bit of a noise, but it does sound much better than it did previously. The tension is obviously better, so the unit will be performing better. But anyway, these are the things that you look for, basically, things that you do in these PMs. It's pretty much straightforward. Sorry if I rambled a bit much, but just wanted to help a new guy, somebody who owns one of these at one of their buildings, just kind of grasp what you do, what you need, what an HVAC tech does day to day during a PM. So if you guys enjoyed, which I hope you did, leave a comment below or leave me some recommendations for the future. I plan to do some more videos in the future. Hopefully that will be better than this one. This is my first time doing this. Just couldn't tell. Anyway, yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Hope I helped you out. Thanks.